right, welcome to the Podcave, Sean Steele. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Michigan Comics Collective. It's a group of comic enthusiasts in the Michigan area, in Michigan, and they are all about putting out professional level comics. So it's a group of writers, artists, letterers, and even just enthusiasts that want to get in and be part of the business or whatever. And they put out professional level comics such as Up the River or Wild Bullets are a couple of their episodes or editions that I have that are really outstanding. One of their artists is Sean Steele, and he's in the Podcave today. Sean, welcome.
Thank you.
You are a painter, I would say, right? You're an artist,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
But Greg likes to say you've got a painterly style. Greg.
Yeah, I'm more of a painter before I'm, more of a painter before I'm a comic book artist, but
Okay. Good.
I don't know. I don't know that I should really just make a distinction between those two. Because
Right. Yep. Yeah, because your comics, your style in the comics,
I paint more than I draw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which the distinction doesn't matter. Painting and drawing is kind of overlap, right?
A lot of people like to really separate the two, but I mean,
Especially
there's a lot more overlap there.
Yeah, especially in comics because you have the penciler, and then the color, the inker and the colorists. Where your work,
there's the whole production aspect.
Where your work really doesn't fit into that.
Yeah, I pretty much do. I do something similar to like Fiona Staples, right? A lot of she's the one that does like Saga.
Oh, okay.
It's a comic that's pretty popular right now.
Mm-hmm. All right, so can you tell us about what you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got like several things going on right now. Let's see. I just finished up a short with Greg Wright, who you just had on the show, right?
Yeah.
It's called Honor Among Thieves. It's going to be for the next Michigan Comics Collective anthology, and it's basically kind of like a fantasy thing with like it's like I'm trying to think of how to describe this. The dad is he reminds me a little bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger from like Conan, right?
Oh yeah.
It's that sort of like genre.
Okay.
And then Conan, he has a teenage daughter.
Okay.
And they're both thieves.
I got you. Okay. Oh
right?
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Because I love the Conan comic books, by the way, but
in fact it's very similar. In fact, I this particular one I went ahead and did the lettering on as well.
Okay.
And like I pulled out like some of the newer Conan comics that are out. Like actually I think I got one right here. Power of the Dragon. Yeah.
Oh, check that out. Yeah.
So that's what I used for like my lettering, style. Like I looked at that, I was like, well, this is how they did the lettering in Conan, font looks like this.
So you hand lettered it?
I didn't hand letter it, no.
Oh, okay.
But it's like I'm not a letterer, but I'm a graphic artist, so I was able to like kind of look at what they did and do something similar. Like I can pretty much look at something like that somebody else did, and I can tell you how they did it.
Yeah. So I got you. No, lettering is I enjoy like lettering the comics. It's fun. I could spend hours deciding on the font to use.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I pulled that comic out. It was just kind of check the like what kind of fonts did they use.
And then you can just placing it in the proper spot and using the right bubble and all the combination of all those things, you can really change the feel of the story. that's one of the things I love about comics is not, it's just all how that stuff all works together, and I don't know about you, but that's one of the things I get a kick out of.
No, I do. It's I enjoy comics. I mean, I wish I had time to read more comics. I mean, the drawer I just pulled that Conan comic out of has a bunch of comics that I've not had time to read.
Ugh.
Because it's like I bought them thinking I'm going to read them, and then I get involved in projects, and next thing you know, I'm making comics instead of reading comics.
Yeah. I understand.
I don't. There's only so many hours in the day,
I understand. Speaking of that, so what do you do for work? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh no, I don't mind. I work for a company that makes headstones.
Oh, okay.
So.
Oh, that's right. You're a graphic designer, right?
Yeah. I mean, and the way I got into it was, I started doing like a guy that owns a company that makes headstones, right? He okay, this is kind of a long story, but I'll make it short, okay?
Yeah.
I was working at Sears, right, in Saginaw.
Yeah.
And I worked in the auto center. I was a salesperson.
Okay.
And a guy had his car died in the parking lot at the mall where the Sears was.
Mm-hmm.
And he needed a battery put in.
Fashion Square Mall?
Yeah, Fashion Square Mall.
Right.
You know the mall.
Yeah.
So a guy comes in, it's middle of winter, it's snowing outside. Guy's car, he left his lights on while he was in the mall shopping, right?
Yeah.
So he comes over to the auto center and he needs a battery put in.
Okay.
And I'm working as a salesperson, and so he buys a battery, but it's like he doesn't have any tools. So like I go in the back and I ask one of the mechanics, I'm like, can I borrow, a couple wrenches or whatever and help this guy put a battery in his car?
Right.
So we walk over, we put a battery in his car, and he's just like, I had just finished. I mean, I'm from Indiana, right?
Right.
So I had worked at an auto center while I was in college in Indiana, and then I transferred to the one in Saginaw, Michigan when we moved to Michigan.
Okay.
So this was like, I was still kind of looking for a job.
Right.
And I helped the guy put the battery in his car. It's the middle of winter, it's snowing. The guy was really grateful, and he's like, man, I really, is there anything I could do for you or whatever? And I said, well, I just got a degree in graphic design, so if you know anybody that's looking for a graphic designer or an artist,
yeah,
that'd be cool. He's like, well, here's my card, and he gave me his card, and he said, well, call me. So I was like, he's like, because I think I know somebody who might need an artist. And so I didn't call him right away. And then my wife says, well, I went home and I told my wife the story, about how helping this guy put the battery in his car.
Yeah.
And she says, a couple of weeks go by, and she says, did you ever call that guy that you helped him put the battery in his car? And I said, no. I said, he was just being, he just was grateful because, he was it's middle of winter and he's stranded in the parking lot. He needs someone to help the car battery in.
If you call him, he's
help
gonna be like, dude,
she's like, well, you should call him. I'm like, all right, so fine. I called him, and turns out, we had a little phone conversation. He says, what I'm really looking for is like somebody who can do like paint, like landscapes and deer and wildlife art and that kind of thing, like engrave them on headstones. I'm like, well, it's like I'm a wildlife landscape painter. So, next thing you know, I started doing like work for him, like on the side, like on the weekends I'd go and I'd engrave scenes.
Is this the guy that you fixed his car? Same guy?
Yeah.
Oh, that gave you the card. Okay. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So I started doing like work on the weekends for him, like like black granite headstones. Like people would bring in like pictures of like their stuff.
Yeah.
And they'd want it engraved on a headstone, and then I would do it by hand.
Oh wow.
Like with a Dremel tool or like a diamond tip, like vibrating tip tool. And so I'd put like ATVs and snowmobiles and people's cabins and wildlife scenes and deer and birds and whatever you can think of. I'd engrave it on people's headstones.
Oh wow!
And So I did that for a long time, like just on the side. He'd pay me. I'd get paid a certain fee, like to do it, right, like per job.
Right.
And then the guy that worked for him full time quit, and he says, "Hey, would you be willing to come do this full time?" Right? He's like, not necessarily doing the artwork,
Right.
but just the headstones in general, just
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
Everything associated with making a headstone.
Right.
And that was 1998,
Oh
and I'm
wow.
still doing it.
Huh.
So.
Oh great. It worked out.
So now I do a lot of the work on the computer. So I don't do hardly anything by hand anymore. We have a machine that's like a laser
Mm-hmm.
that like I lay out like scenes, like people give me pictures and I lay them out in Photoshop.
Right.
And then we have like a laser that actually burns the image into the stone.
Wow.
So like I've been through, yeah, I'm a headstone guy.
It's good work though, right?
Yeah, I mean
If you've been doing it this long, you must
people are always
suit you,
dying,
right?
so I just keep making headstones.
All right, cool. And so then on the side, you or on the in your free time, then you do comics, right?
Right.
And have you been doing that the whole time as well, or is that something lately?
No, actually, like the way it worked out was there was I kept the part of the business where like I engraved the headstones like with the pictures.
Yeah.
I kept that separate for a very long time, and I actually was doing it for like, I think 3 or 4 companies at one time.
Oh, okay.
So it was like the guy I originally worked for, and then I left him to go work for another company, but I was still doing the specialized work for him.
Right.
And then there was like another company, like in Durand that I was doing work for.
Okay.
And the owner of the company I'm at was at another company for a while. And I was doing work for that company. So that's like 4 companies
Right.
that I was just doing that for on the side.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I'd have my day job where I'd be like, sandblasting the headstones and laying them out and dealing with production and delivery and, all the, kind of the menial stuff, that you have
Yeah.
to do
Right.
for like years and years.
Okay.
And then the whole industry kind of started switching to this process of like doing the images that I used to do. They switched to like the laser process.
Right.
So instead of doing it by hand, now it's done with a machine.
Right.
I'm like classic example of a guy that got replaced by a machine.
Right. Right.
But I have the benefit of the guy that runs the machine has to know Photoshop, and that's also my thing.
Oh,
So
I got you.
so I run the machine that replaced me.
Nice. Well done.
It's bad in the sense that I was earning like an extra 10 to 15 like up to $20,000 one year, I think, doing
Right.
it on the side
I
on the
got you.
weekends,
I
right?
got you. Right.
But I wasn't able to do anything else because it's like that was taking up all of my time. It was like my day job and it was also my weekend job.
Okay.
So when I replaced myself with the laser machine, I freed up all my weekends and my extra time, and so I was kind of like meandering around for a couple of years. I'm just like, well, like picking up odd graphic design, illustration
Yeah.
job, book covers,
Yeah.
children's
Idle
book,
hands.
yeah, whatever. And I was just like, well, what is it that I've always wanted to do that I always thought was really cool that I'd like to try? And it's like I thought, comic books.
Yeah.
Now, the bad thing about comic books is everybody wants to do comic books.
Right. 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 Right.
There's really no money in it.
Yep.
Because you've got so many people that can make money at a thing, right? And you have all these other people that want to make money doing a thing.
That's what I tell people. People are tell me like, "Oh, you're so talented. You should, you should be making money at this." I'm like, "You don't understand.
Oh,
Like,
it's
I'm not
crazy.
even, I'm way down the list of people, and even the great people are not making money at this.
Well, the thing is, it's like in comic books, it's like the thing that I've come to realize, it's like, and I'm not like here to like crush anyone's hopes and dreams. I mean, I hate that sometimes I sound like an old cynical guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into it, you realize that's like, you think that you're like this big fish in a little pond because all your friends tell you you're really talented and you're really good at art.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, you think you're a big fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
Then you get into comics, and then you find out it's like, Marvel and DC are using these people that they're paying next to nothing that live in other countries that are like so much more talented than you are.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people that are so very good.
There's this guy that does this spit paint thing that I like, and Goro Fujito or something like this.
Okay.
Incredible. He does these 30-minute spit paint things that look like, the most incredible.
I think, like the speed paint things. Yep.
Yeah. And so he's a great artist, very talented. And he can pound these things out like nothing. And so,
there's somebody behind me.
Yeah, there's a little guest there. So, he's an incredible artist, very talented, obviously. And then I found out about him a little bit, like about his personally. He worked for a Pixar movie for like 3 years. He was in charge of one of the characters' feet or something. I mean, for 3 years he did this, like,
right.
So here's this incredibly talented dude who's been relegated to some character's feet. You know what I mean? So
right.
Imagine all the talented people they have working on the character design and all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm not going to spend my time trying to get into that league.
Right.
Because first of all, I just don't feel confidence that I'm going to get there.
Right.
Second of all, I would rather spend my time actually completing a project that I can call my own.
Yeah, and and that's
for me personally. That's what I would like to do.
The thing is like a lot of people just don't have the right perspective about it. It's like they have this idea that they're going to break into whatever.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Comics, animation, pick it, whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to break into it.
Yeah.
That's not a good plan.
It's a good dream.
Breaking into something is not a good plan because you think about it, it's like, what's the people that are in there, what's their main, this is like business 101, right?
Yeah.
Barriers to entry.
Yeah.
It's one of the first things they teach you about business. And comics, animation, anything, it's when you get into a professional level where people are feeding mouths with what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a business just like any other business, and it plays by the exact same rules. You can only have the pie is only so big, right? And you have to divide it up into and you can only divide it up into so many pieces and still feed the people that you have to feed.
Right.
So so thinking in terms of I'm going to break in is retarded. I mean, I hate to say that in such a really negative way because I know that like everyone that knows me and like all my friends, I'm going to break into comics. But the people who really know, and I'm being a straight shooter here. It's like you don't break into comics. What you do is you go and you take a piece of the pie away from the people who already have it.
Yeah.
That's the way that you make money in comics. You go and you compete with them.
Yeah.
You don't become their friends. It's not like I'm going to become your friend and I'm going to get in. It's like it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Because they already have more friends than they can already feed.
Yeah, because everybody wants to do comics. Right.
Right, because everyone wants to do comics. So it's like, honestly, Paul, what your philosophy of I'm just going to do my own thing and get out there and sell it, what ultimately will end up happening is if you are able to make something and like people like it and they want to buy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you become a threat or competition to them, and so in order to protect their piece of the pie, they're going to buy whatever it is you're making. So the people that have the resources, like Marvel, DC, I'm just throwing them out. Those are the biggest names, but there's some other names too, right? they're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to buy this comic that Paul Pate is making, and Paul Pate is going to be the next big Marvel DC artist because Paul Pate is competing with us and taking a piece of our pie.
I got you.
You know, that's the way that you break into comics. You don't break into comics like I'm knocking on their door. Hey, can you feed me?
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not counting on that either, Sean.